Hello and welcome. This is Founder Layron with a episode of the Fantasy Grounds Academy checking out the new audio integration. This just dropped yesterday. Bear in mind it's very new. I don't pretend to know everything about it, but I have some initial observations, some things you might want to know when you start implementing this into your games or if you're considering investing. So first things first, it's ideal to have a Syrinscape account. So if you don't already have one, they have a subscription. Their highest tier model is like $20 for every 2 months. So it's like basically $11 a month. And that gives you everything in their library. All the sounds are hosted on their website, and they have their own web player, which is this. This is what I'm using actually to pipe audio into my OBS, and my players can join this through a link so that they don't have to have the files on their computer, and they can just bring up the link. They can control the volume on their end, that sort of thing. And the other thing is these sound sets that come with Syrinscape are kind of unique to certain rule sets and modules. So in Fantasy Grounds, if you own the module already, that's fine, that's great. And then you just get a sound pack, which makes it much easier for you to play the sounds in a game, and it's already kind of integrated with Fantasy Grounds. If you're going to use a rule set that's not supported or licensed for Syrinscape, then you're going to have to make the sound associations yourself within the Fantasy Grounds Unity platform. So I wanted to make that clear. So eventually there will be more catalog items for the Fantasy Grounds store. Right now they just have 3 initial products that are available for us to get if you're interested. And some of this may not appeal to you if you use a different rule set that's not supported, or perhaps you already have a sound solution set up. So there may not be any reason for you to jump over to this. But if you're new to Fantasy Grounds and you've never used audio in your games, this makes it a little easier. It's a lot more intuitive than trying to do it all manually. Whereas before, a lot of us that have used Fantasy Grounds for a while had to integrate third-party solutions to get audio triggered through Fantasy Grounds. So it was quite a process, and it still kind of is when you want to use local files. So they do give the ability where you can actually trigger audio on your computer through Fantasy Grounds instead of having to trigger it manually outside of Fantasy Grounds. Some people use a launch pad or a stream deck or something like that. Occasionally they'll hit that when they want an audio effect. But what this does is it allows you to associate events and things in the chat window or mood environments that when you walk into a room. So those for local audio, you would have to do those yourself, and you have to figure out a way to pipe the audio from your computer to your player. So you'd have to use a bot or some sort of program like Voicemeeter to route the audio to your player. So that hasn't changed. So just to be clear, if you're going to use localized files, you can, but you have to make a folder on the back end of Fantasy Grounds that's labeled sounds, and then you would put your collection in there, and then you go into Fantasy Grounds and associate that directory with the integrated audio solution. However, if you want to use Syrinscape and you already have a subscription, but you haven't really used it much, or maybe you're brand new and you're going to start something up, if you want to use the supported rule sets in Syrinscape and Fantasy Grounds, they make it a little easier for you. So if I go to the store currently, they have all the new content out right now that's available for that. So if you come here, I mean, obviously you have these new dice. That's another topic. But you have 3 Syrinscape packs. One is Lost Mine of Fandelver, one is the Player's Handbook, and one's a Monster Manual. So what this does is it provides you with the sound links, not the actual audio, but the links. So when you load these modules up in Fantasy Grounds and you have your Syrinscape player open, you can trigger audio events depending on what's happening in the combat tracker and where you are on the map. So that's what these are. And if you've ever worked with audio in Fantasy Grounds, it takes a while to do all those mappings. It's not something that you can just snap your fingers and do. You have to take a little time to do that. if you're going to do it with your local audio, it's a lot of work. I'm going to tell you right now, it's not as easy as it looks. These sound packs, I imagine, will expand. They'll probably go into like Pathfinder and that sort of thing. So probably the major rule sets, rule sets that are supported on Syrinscape are what's going to get these packs. You probably won't see any generic ones very often. That's just a guess. I don't know this. I'm not really in the mix, but I do have a feeling that there's going to be a lot more to this in the future. So what these are basically a ton of labor that goes into meticulously associating events from the game or the module and pointing it towards the Syrinscape audio links, which will trigger the audio. So if you're going to use Syrinscape, there is a Syrinscape player that's an online player, and you just invite your friends to that link. You give them the link, and they can listen to the audio on their computer, and there's nothing hosted anywhere except for on the Syrinscape itself. So like I said, if you're going to use local audio, you have to do all the mappings and the file associations yourself. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up Fantasy Grounds, and let's take a look. So what I have here is an official module. This is Lost Mine of Phandelver. I believe that Smiteworks uses this as their test because that's kind of the module they use for their standard when they're testing new features, or they want to try the content out. So that they're going to use something like Lost Mine because they're very familiar with it, and it probably has the most work done to it overall as far as maps and all that other stuff. Imagine that, like Pathfinder and maybe Cyberpunk or whatever rule sets are supported in Syrinscape will eventually get those sound packs too. And that may only appeal to you if you have a Syrinscape account. So if you don't, and you don't want to pay for another subscription, you technically can add your own files. So I'm going into the sound system here, which is over here on the right. There's a little button here called Sound Content. And then there's another one called Sound Set, which just shows you a list of all the different triggers and all the work that was put into these. So there's 22 pages worth of stuff, and they're this long, just in the 3 modules that I have loaded. So if I go to my library and under modules, here are the Lost Mine, the Monster Manual, and the Player's Handbook. So you could get by with just the Lost Mine of Phandelver and maybe just the Player's Handbook. You don't necessarily have to have the Monster Manual if you already have all the monsters. But what those do is provide sounds for your players, for your characters. So if you don't have those modules, you'll only get the sound effects and the creature sounds from that particular module. But if you work outside of that and you want to add your own, it's nicer to have these additional packs so that you have the audio for monsters and NPCs and players and such. Stuff that you make yourself. So that's where this kind of comes in handy, is it covers, probably 80% of what you need as far as audio goes. So that's just loading up the modules. You have to activate those. And then you also have to go to the Syrinscape website and sign up, and then you have to associate your account. There's a spot in your account where you can actually go in and you can associate whatever it is that you need. You have to make that available for Fantasy Grounds when you go to set it up. And they kind of make it easy. Like when you go to set that up, it's pretty simple. It's a lot more intuitive. Like you go to your authorization, and when you click that, you put your key in there from Syrinscape. You can web import data or do a CSV import, which is all the link associations and all that, the settings. And then you can generate and invite a web session, which you will invite your friends. So if you already have the session set up, you just click invite. It puts a link in chat, and then all your players will click on that link, and then it'll bring up the audio through their browser. So if you watch the release video that Doug put out, he goes into quite a lot of detail, more official. I'm kind of looking at this as a consumer, on the other side of this, and I'm just kind of letting you know some of the realities here, that when you do set this up, it takes some work if you're going to do customized sound links, Or if you're going to do, you're going to use the Syrinscape stuff, you have to have a subscription. Or maybe you already own some of the sound packs. But nonetheless, one of I think for me as a consumer, if I pretend like I don't know nothing else, I think it's pretty cool. So what I have up here is the Wave Echo Cave from Lost Mine of Phandelver. If you've never played this, pardon for the spoilers, but I have a group here of adventurers that are on a map that are related to the module that's loaded, which is Lost Mine. So I have this up, and this is the combat where they're going to fight with this ochre jelly. So as you navigate through these story entries, it changes the sound context available for you. So if I click back, it's going to change this back to some of these noises. So if we have a battle or a fight, I can turn on these one-shots, or I can change this mood. So I want to go to some general content. Here's the Wave Echo Cave. These are mood. So right now I have a background playing. I can turn the volume up from here, which is nice, because before you had to manually turn it up in your browser. So this kind of helps with that. It turns up the volume in Syrinscape. And then you have the one-shot volumes for just the one-time sounds. I usually keep those down because they startle me quite a bit. Like there's some spells that are really loud. So I advise that you keep that volume, the one-shot volume, down to a minimum, because it will scare the crap out of you if you're not used to it. The other thing is, watch your ears, be careful, be safe about how loud the audio is. So your main audio on your headset, you might want to back that off a hair, just so you don't burn up your ears, because that can really be damaging to your ears. So just be careful on that. So I'm going to switch the mood here to one of these cavern things. So I click on that. It's going to show the now playing part, and it will kind of seamlessly kind of mix and blend that into the next mood. Not much difference in this one between the other one. Let me try this other one. Yeah, there's a little bit of difference. Like there's still the howling wind in the background, but at least it changed. It added some drops of rain or some kind of liquid, and the wind is kind of picking up, or it's getting more hollow sounding, so that's kind of cool. So that's a really subtle transition between the moods and the cavern. So now we have a battle here with the actual combat here. So there's a mood here I can put in for the ochre jelly. So when they get to this point where they're actually fighting the ochre jelly, you can click on this combat here, and it will change the mood to this fight mode. So I'm just going to simulate a combat, and we'll see what it does. So I'm going to turn up. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's pretty loud. So it gets to be to where you kind of scare you. So watch your volumes, because that will really, it can really be, scary at first, and it can hurt your ears. So I'm going to turn that down a little bit. And now what I'm going to do is go to my player here, and I'm going to go back to the cave sounds, because this thing is kind of out of turn or whatever. It kind of does its own thing. So what I want to do is go back to the ambient mood, because that's not as overpowering, and then I can trigger those other sound effects myself. Like if the ochre jelly attacks, this is a one shot, so I can just click on that and it won't be as loud, and I have a control over the volume of it. So here's some noises. That's the jelly sounds, I guess. That's the slapping sound from its tentacles. And then, of course, there's the ochre jelly combat. So the combat is kind of an overall mix of mood and the effects. And that's a mood file. But if you want just the single elements, you have those too. So that's what's nice. And then you have this NPC ochre jelly, which is kind of more stuff that's related to this kind of creature. So you can play this, and it's like a sound effect that will play in the background kind of continuously, like it's moving around, that sort of thing. So and you have a little stop button, so if you don't want it to keep going, you can actually click on the stop, and that will that'll stop or cancel out the sound. So that's nice. So you have a lot more control here. I like controlling it through Fantasy Grounds instead of the web browser, because this is how you traditionally do it. Like you'd come in here and you could change your master volume and your one shots and all that from here, and then each set would have to be loaded. And it's a little bit cumbersome, I think, especially if you're new to Syrinscape and you haven't used it in a while, or you haven't used it at all. But when you can control everything from here, it kind of makes it a little bit more focused, and you can kind of tell what you're doing more. And then all the file associations are already associated, so that's pretty nice. So I'm going to do an attack. So my human noble here, this character, is a fighter. I'm going to have him attack the ochre jelly. So if I can bring up his character sheet and go to the actions tab, he has second wind, great axe, and some javelin. So I'm going to have him move over and attack. So I'm going to click on his token. And he doesn't have any light source, so he's kind of fighting in the dark. So I want to give him a torch just in case. But if that's the case, then his great axe, I can't use that because it's, he's two-handed weapon. So this should be changed to two-handed because the great axe is a two-handed weapon. So I don't think he can have any light. So that would probably give him a penalty. So what I'm going to do is have this folk hero, she's going to light up a torch to give some light. So if I go into the interface and go to options, or in this case, this will be the effects, I'm going to take the torch and drag it to her entry here on the combat tracker or on the map, and that lights up the area a little bit. So now she can actually give this guy some light as he's going into fight. So you can assume that she already had that on. So now that that's there, now what I'm going to do is, yeah, see here's some mood lighting. Something's out there. See, it's coming up with some really cool integrations without me even doing anything, which could be good, or you may not like it, but I think it's kind of neat. So this is, like I said, this is the sound player. So yeah, it changed the mood a little bit, and it played through to where you get to this part where it feels kind of eerie. So that's pretty neat. They got it timed too. I don't know how long these loops are. Some can be up to 10 minutes, I think. But anyways, so the fighter is going to go. It's his turn. So I'm going to move him over and down closer to the ochre jelly. Yeah, so he has enough light to attack. So he comes up here in melee range. And if I wanted to emulate this player as the GM, as a player, I have to hold the Alt key. So if you want to know how far he moved, you can do something like that. Alright, so now that he's close enough, I'm going to take his great axe and attack the ochre. So I can either drag it to the combat tracker or I can drag it to the map. So I'll take this attack roll. And that scored a hit, barely. It was a 10. He had a +5 on his attack roll. And now for the damage. So you weren't able to hear it very well because I have those one-shots turned down. But basically there was a splatter sound, or the sound of the creature being hit by the axe. So I'm going to turn that up. So I'll turn up the one-shot volume. Now let's try it again. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll just say he has 2 attacks. He really doesn't though, but this time, yep. So there was, I heard that swing of the axe. And now let's grab the damage. So he resisted it based off of the type of damage. So that's pretty cool. So the video that Doug put out is pretty good. I'm not trying to take away from that. That's the official video. He put that out yesterday, or they released it yesterday along with all the new releases. But basically, what you're getting is the ability to link events in the combat tracker to the attacks and to the damage sounds and some mood for the locations that you're in. So when you want to do that, you have to, if you want to do it yourself and you want to use your local files, you have to do a file import in which you have to tell it the path or the directory that your sounds are in. And the recommendation is that you create a subfolder on the back end of Fantasy Grounds under the Fantasy Grounds data folder called Sounds. And then you put your collections in there. And then you put the directory of where you put them in here. And then you click File Import. And what it will do is list the either the files or the folder that you're in, and then you have to load all those in and then set up your own actions and all that stuff. So there's a lot of work. So if you want to integrate your own audio, it's going to take some time and work. If you have a Syrinscape account and you already got everything linked up, it's a lot easier. It is a subscription fee. Some people don't like paying those, but if you want the audio integration, you're going to have some form of subscription. And then on top of that, you need the module in Fantasy Grounds. So I don't want to be kind of Mr. Marketing guy here, so I wanted to be honest with you that it takes some time to get used to this, and also there's some reality to it. Like, if you use your local files, you do need to learn how to pipe that into Discord or OBS or wherever you want to use it. There's no easy solution. Syrinscape has a web player, or they even have built their older online player where it played on your computer locally. So they have already that part taken care of for you. But when you do your own localized sounds, it has to get to the players. It doesn't go through Fantasy Grounds, it goes through your computer. So I just wanted to be clear on that. So there are some differences. You can also mix and match. You can use your own stuff mixed in with Syrinscape, so that's a good thing. If you're using Matacure's sound links already, this is very similar. This would be very familiar to you. You can continue using that until he quits working on it. There's no reason why you need to switch right away. Also, the catalog on the actual internet is kind of low right now because it's new. So if you're kind of disappointed, I'm pretty certain that they will start making stuff for other rule sets eventually, especially like Pathfinder 2, Starfinder. All the stuff that Syrinscape supports is basically a potential for that to be converted into sound links. I know that work takes a while. Like, to make one of these sound packs for an entire module would likely take you a few hours, if not more, because there's a lot of different little things. You got sound effects, you got moods, you got the one-shots, and then you have to associate it with the correct directory or the correct URL for the Syrinscape triggers. So there's a lot of work there too. So eventually that will become a thing where you'll be able to pick more of these sound things up. And if you haven't picked up these new dice yet, they look pretty cool. So that's what I'm using in here. I'm using one of the sets. They look pretty cool. So anyways, hopefully that helps you guys a little bit. I'm going to make an article that talks more about this, and I'm also going to hold a class to show you how to set this up more, because I'm not going to go through all of that here. And then Doug kind of did a pretty good job in his video kind of explaining how that process works. But the next class that I'm going to be teaching, I believe, is the 22nd, Thursday, in Fantasy Grounds Academy. So if you're interested in how to get this set up and all that stuff, just make sure you have a Syrinscape account, you have at least a standard license, and you have Lost Mine Defend Over module if you want to go through and kind of follow along. Or if you just want to observe and ask questions and kind of see if it's worth your time, you could do that. So anyways, I'll post the link for that class after this video. It'll be up on YouTube. And if you want to join us next week, which will be June 22nd of 2023. So if you're watching this in the future, I apologize. So anyways, you guys take care. Enjoy the rest of your week. Happy Hump Day.